The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky here, and today I'm with Martin Stadelmeyer. Martin, welcome.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great to have you on. So Martin, you're the managing director and partner at Ambi, depending on, as you said, where you're located. You might say it a little bit differently. Engineering. So your firm has conducted over 400 projects with 100 clients around the world. Your team is in Mexico, has over 125 members. You have over 100 members in the US, a presence in Brazil, India, and China. So a very global company. Before we talk about what you're doing today, I want to get the backstory of how you got to where you are. I know you're originally from Germany. You told me kind of born in Munich, spent some time in a small town in the state of Bavaria before kind of becoming a world traveler. But take us back to like the early years, because my understanding is that you really started in the automotive industry. Is that where you began right out of kind of college, university, or what were you doing in those early years?
Yes, I started in automotive in Volkswagen. And that is even, I never wanted to go into automotive. I wanted to go to China. So if I take you back through that journey, I wanted to go to China because I was allowed to spend an internship in Beijing in 2001, and I just loved the energy. People weren't complaining about, like I was used to from Germany, the way that everything's bad and that the world will come to an end anyway. But people had energy and they wanted to bring their families forward. They talked about their master programs or how they want to build their own businesses, and I just loved that. I majored in finance. I was always looking for a career in finance. I think I did all the right steps in terms of internships at Deutsche Bank, Hypovereinsbank, some discount brokers, Ernst & Young, PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I really was prepared for my finance career. And then Volkswagen came and said, hey, you're not an engineer, but we'll teach you what you need to learn about becoming a buyer, and we'll send you to China. And that's when I signed.
You said yes to getting into the automotive industry, even though finance was really where you wanted to be, because they gave you an opportunity to go to China. Was that the main reason?
In my first year, right. My initial thoughts was you need to be about 5 years in a company to really learn something before you can become an expatriate. I still believe that, by the way, in order to offer something to the other country within your organization. So my plan was to enter an organization, learn for at least 5 years, and then later become an expatriate that will be sent eventually to China or Asia. And Volkswagen said, we'll teach you in 3 months what you need to know. We need people in Shanghai. Just go.
So I imagine you had some excitement when that opportunity presented itself. Were there any fears, concerns? Like what was kind of take us into if there was any dark side in Martin's mind around entering a brand new country? Was there anything that maybe, you were concerned about?
Not really. I've been fortunate that I had many opportunities prior to China to travel. So I spent a year in the United States as an exchange student, met people from all over the country and from all over the world in Minnesota, learned what it meant to be in a tough winter. Later studied in Spain, in Greece, spent half a year in Venezuela, got mugged and robbed in Venezuela. So I wasn't afraid of China. Points of concern, obviously, first job. So how will that play out? Taking my back then girlfriend from India to a new culture. How will that play out? One of the concerns was, will I be able to fulfill my own very high target to leave the country after a year with conversational Chinese? So I did I did enough partying, but I did less of partying and a lot of studying in order to get to the level which I wanted to get to.
Right. Well, I mean, you and I share many similarities in that I've also always kind of considered myself to be an international citizen, spent time traveling and living different places around the world, and went to Japan for open up a branch office for one of our businesses many years ago. So a lot of what you're saying brings back some great memories for me. I want to come back though for a moment to your years in Volkswagen. I mean, this is a very large, well-known organization. Germany is known specifically for engineering and precision and systems. When you look at what you learned during that time and you think about where you are today as kind of a partner in a consulting firm, what are the most powerful lessons or concepts that you learned from that time that you feel have really played or supported the success that you've had to this point in your career?
Structure, processes, and training. So these are three of the good reasons why it makes, in my opinion, sense to start out a career in a big corporation. I'll always be grateful for all the training Volkswagen provided. If I compare that with our current organization, we are not able to bring people through months of training in their first year. It's all hands-on or mostly hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
But the structured training program helped. All the processes and systems that Volkswagen or a Mercedes or any other big corporation has in place lets you understand how the whole value chain in automotive works, and very specifically in the small niche where you will be assigned to, since you're not going to start as a CEO for sure. So understanding really how purchasing processes work, that's a big value add. And that helped me to understand purchasing in detail.
So you've built yourself up as being known as a real expert kind of in the automotive industry. What do you think goes into establishing yourself as an expert? What are the steps or the requirements in order for somebody to truly become an expert and be recognized as an expert in their industry?
I think what I recommend anybody that's in automotive, go take one launch and be responsible as a program manager. Whether you're on a tier 1 level and you're responsible for your product, or at the OEM level, try to be responsible for one car or van or truck, whatever launch. And that will truly teach you. Like before that, I thought I'm an expert in automotive purchasing, but you only see part of the process. And only if you're responsible, where the purchasing, the quality, and the engineering guys tell you, well, according to my process, I'm not responsible for whatever you're missing, my dear project director or project manager. And you have to find a way inside that organization to still launch the car on time. That's where I understood most about automotive. So my best teaching was become the program manager. And I did that way later in my career, like 5, 6, 7 years later. The second thing is get out of your own company. You can spend all your career inside an OEM and you'll be very good at what you're doing, but that doesn't mean you're an expert in the automotive industry. In order to really understand what's going on, it's great to be in a consulting company, for example, and you have different clients that approach the same thing, like launching a car, in different ways. So for me, there's a difference to being a subject matter expert on, for example, purchasing or quality or logistics versus really understanding the overall picture in automotive industry. And number two, how do you make sure that you're not only an expert within your organization because you've been there for 20, 30 years?
Right. When you think about being inside of a consulting business and things that you could do to accelerate the perception of your expertise in the marketplace, what recommendations would you have to people who are already running their own consulting business? And if they want to be recognized in the marketplace, what are some things that you've seen work well yourself or that you believe could really make a difference and help them to get that recognition and see those results sooner?
Here's one thing, like Josh Schultz introduced us, and I'm really grateful for that. He has a very unique approach, and I truly appreciate him as a person and a human being and as a friend. He says, look, at the beginning, it's not about making business or making money. It's about sharing what you know. And if you have something valuable to share, whether it's LinkedIn or whatever social media or whatever platform you use, and if you do it in an intelligent way, people will come back and ask you for your advice. And there you go. So it's not about making the sale on day one. It's about sharing your knowledge. What I found for myself very powerful is to be together with the right people. So an example in Mexico is Oscar Albin. He's the president of INA. That's the Industry Association for all automotive parts manufacturers. And it's probably one of the top 2 organizations in the automotive world in Mexico, if not the top one. So once you get his attention and his team's attention, and you get an opportunity to speak on his conferences and podcasts and other things, that helps. Doesn't make you money, right? But it helps to establish you as an industry expert, because he wouldn't invite you if you don't have anything valuable to share.
And is that what you've done? You got his attention. So walk us through that. I want to make this really tactical and valuable for everybody. What did you do? What were the steps that you took to get his attention and then to get acceptance and then to get some time on the stage in front of potential clients?
Right. I mean, I had the luck that I was sent by Mercedes as the head of purchasing and supplier quality to Mexico some 8 years ago. And at that time, I got to know Oscar. And he invited me in that moment as a head of purchasing. And here's the first thing. Many of my predecessors probably did not go to these conferences because you have to get the buy-in of compliance department. And it's actually not that easy to get your presentation pre-approved in a big organization. So even he invited, let's say 10 OEMs, only 4 showed up. And that was the first step. So already while I was working for the OEM, I tried to help him out in this case, because for my day-to-day business, it really didn't matter whether I was doing this presentation in front of a couple hundred people or not. I thought it was beneficial for the mission because we were doing supplier development and looking for specifically new suppliers at that moment. But I also understand why people say, I'm not going to do that. So that was the first step, establish the relationship. In that case, I had something to offer to him. And the second important step is when I left Mercedes, he was on my top 10 people to call, not email. That's important. If something's important to you and your mission, don't use LinkedIn, don't use email, call, try to get a meeting, try to take a coffee. And that's exactly what I did. I called Oscar and told him that I would like to have a coffee with him because I will be leaving Mercedes and I will be joining Ambi. And I want to talk to him about what we can do together going forward.
Right. How did he receive that? I mean, because I think some people hesitate to take that action, Martin, because they don't want to come across as being salesy. What was your mindset going into making that request?
I don't want to sell you anything, Oscar. I'm here to let you know what Ambi has to offer. And I'm doing a brainstorming together with you about what we can do together. How can we create win-win? And that doesn't mean that I expect him to run my sales ad on his channels, but maybe there's a topic where we can give value add to his members. And of course, it's not going to cost him to have us on his panel.
Right. Is that what you said to him to get the meeting, or that was just kind of what was going through your mind as you were thinking about setting up that meeting?
That was going through my mind. What was going on in my head probably was Oscar is probably one of the most important people in the automotive industry, if not the important one in Mexico, certainly the top 2. I need to get a coffee with him so he knows what Ambi is doing. And then even if he doesn't let us play on any of his channels, his advice is good. And honestly, I don't remember whether I called him before I took the decision or after. So here's another important thing. If you're ever considering leaving a big company and going by yourself as a consultant, think about who are potential stakeholders in your future and just use them as a mentor. So I'm not sure. Maybe Oscar remembers whether I asked him before I left, what is his opinion. But I certainly asked several people before I took the big step after 12 years in a corporate career to leave.
So you took that step. Today, you're the managing director and a partner at Ambi. Walk us through, Martin, what are some of your roles and responsibilities? It's a good sized firm with people all around the world. What are you focused on a day-to-day? What's kind of your mandate?
My mandate is mainly business development. So it should be 80% of my time, but with all the other small things that pop up, I spend less time with my clients than I would like to, but it's still 80% of my job is focused on developing our existing and new client relationships.
Let's walk through that. So if we begin, first of all, with your existing clients, one area that a lot of consultants, it's not necessarily they struggle, but when people think about business development or marketing or generating revenue, it's quite common for people to think about new clients, like going out there and trying to drum up new leads and new business. But the data actually shows that most business tends to come from existing clients. What are some of the best practices or steps that you take or that your team takes consistently, or just that you found that works really well to develop more business from existing clients?
The right balance of a non-annoying drip system. So I never want to sell. I just want to be front of mind when the customer needs that he thinks about us. That's my role, the way I interpret it. So whether that drip system is by email, by social media, or by calls, depends case by case. Whether the drip system will be used weekly, monthly, all 3 months, or once a year, depends on the use case and client. So I give you 1 or 2 examples. Let's say one of our very important OEM clients, I had email distribution list of, 40 key players inside that OEM, and they got weekly updates because we were on a very special and important project and program with them, where that OEM said, I will help Ambi grow because you're a minority supplier, Ambi, you're women-owned, so we will help you grow. Please keep us informed on a weekly basis. And then based on the feedback we received, they're like, we really love your weekly update emails. We now know exactly what's going on within Ambi and the relationship between the OEM and Ambi, but don't send it every week. Every 3 to 4 weeks is fine. So we changed that now, rhythm to every 4 weeks. But that doesn't mean that besides that monthly email update, that I don't take the phone and call some of the key players or send them a text message so they know we're still around.
Quick question for you then on that, Martin, before we go on. So that weekly update, what was the contents? Was it about what was happening inside your company, or was it about the work you were doing with the client? Like, kind of give us a high level overview of what was the content of that email.
Step one, what are the big news? So for example, today, September 13th, we received the biggest purchase order of our company's history from that client. So that would be for sure in 2 weeks as a number one headline item. So thank you for the purchase order for these 4 new projects. That's a great next step. It then would go into what are interesting news. So for example, one of our partners named his son after the client's company name. That's crazy, but he did because he liked the name. So we continue to share baby photos, like the partner's son, 1 year old, his baby photo, then 1 year old birthday, and the client just loves it. That goes up to their top management. It's a big OEM. Make it personal. So when we hire a new important director, we share that news with our client. Not every person that gets hired gets shared, but important key personal changes. The sales funnel we have within the client. What are the updates? What are the current projects with the client? Where do we stand? And last, client referred business. So this is an important one. When you think about the supply chain in any industry of the OEM and then tier 1, tier 2, our main business development is not because the OEMs buy our service, but because they tell their tier 1s, hey, why don't you work with Ambi? Because we trust them. And you can transfer that into any industry. One example on business development, I don't go to my clients, let's say whatever tier 1 company, and say, I think you may have problems with your supply chain, so let me help you. I usually say, I assume your house is in order. You got everything perfectly under control, but maybe one or the other of your suppliers is giving you a headache. So why don't you let us work with them? And by the way, they pay. So it's free for you. So that is a very important sales channel.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early-stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early-stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
You mentioned that in addition, part of your kind of touch points might be a phone call, might be social media, might be text message. What are those messages? So if you were sending a text message to check in with somebody, what would you typically be saying to them in that text message?
Hope you're well. Depending on how well I know the family, hope family is well. Time for a quick touch point. Or another example would be the situation is getting better. Time to meet for a beer/coffee.
Right. So very personal. And so these messages, like what percentage of this kind of drip campaign, as you called it, right? This sequence, how much of it is automated and how much of it is manual, you sending the messages to each person?
100% manual.
Okay.
Why? Here's the number one reason. I don't know how many email bots and I delete them immediately. I just don't care for them. After you get the second one, you know it's an automated system behind because I get them every week or every 2 weeks. I do not agree with that. Now, there's a difference between whale hunting and fishing in the big pond. If I would fish in the big pond for $1,000 here, $4,000 there contracts, I probably would have to automate because I don't have the time to individualize every message. It depends really on your ticket size. If you're targeting $20,000 to $1 million deals or $50,000 to $1 million deals, and you think you can get it done with automated messages, good luck. Let me know how it's going.
When you think about that in what you've typically seen in terms of your sales cycle, because you are doing manual, it sounds like, this is a very long-term kind of approach in terms of building relationships. If you were to target a brand new ideal client that you've never worked with, what would be the typical sales cycle, the typical sense or case? How long would it take for them to become a client based on what you've seen in the marketplace right now in the market that you're in?
Anything from a week to 14 years. So I give you 2 examples. We tried to enter into a Japanese OEM, and my boss started that journey 15 years ago. Last year, we finally got a purchase order. So that's called persistence. Again and again, management generation after management generation. And we finally got a shot, and we're proud of it to be associated with that company and that we were allowed to do one project with. Great company. If you have the right product, example, and the market is hot, it maybe just takes a week. If you have the right referral source into that client. So I don't like emails. I think trade shows are okay. The best thing that can happen is if somebody sends an email introduction and that somebody already knows the target person, not company, person. So for example, best thing that can happen, Oscar Albin, and sorry that I keep coming back to that name, sends an email introduction to your target customer. He knows the general manager and he says, hey, why don't you talk to Ambi? These guys are good. And then we take it from there. And if you then have, for example, blue collar staffing and people are hurting for people, you can get it done in a week.
Right. Walk us through this. You've given some great ideas and actions you've taken on the kind of internal client development, the existing client base, and getting more business from them. What about new clients? What are you doing right now? What do you find is working best, Martin, in terms of new client acquisition, generating leads in today's marketplace?
Asking your existing clients for references where they think that they can help you open the door by just forwarding an email of yours. That's the best way, because for me, business is very simple. It's only about one word. That word is called trust. Your job or my job as business development manager, director, whatever your name is, or agent, is to establish trust. Now, do you think on the one side of the spectrum, an automated email bot doing your work will establish trust with another human being? Or the introduction where Sean says to his buddy Joe, hey, Joe, I worked with Ambi or your organization before. Why don't you try them out? I trust.
And what do you ask, Martin, when you're going to your clients and saying, hey, like when you want that referral or that introduction, what's the language that you use? Are you doing it over a phone call? Are you doing it through an email? Walk me through how you go about intentionally getting those referrals and introductions.
Always prefer that to ask for it. That's a topic you need to do eye-to-eye contact or in a phone call. I do not think it's a smart move to send an email out unless there's a really good relationship and say, hey, can you introduce me to so-and-so? This is why I like personal meetings. The easiest is, one is timing, and the second one is medium. So medium is personal or phone. Second is, when do I ask for that? Do I ask for that right when I got the purchase order? No, I asked for it after we had a great project together or after the client said, well, you helped me out with a problem. Now is a great time to ask for it. All right. Thank you. I appreciate the good feedback. Any chance that you could also connect us with your other plant manager? Because we know that you also have a plant in Pennsylvania inside their own organization. That would be number one. And we come back to the same thing that you mentioned. Don't try to always find new clients. Just penetrate the one client you already have first and then focus on the next.
So this is based on already having relationships, already having clients. Let's just take the example that maybe you're new to the industry, a new company. Let's just for a minute play with the idea that you don't have those relationships. You don't have those clients that you can go to get introductions and referrals from. If your role was the same as it is today, which is to develop more business for your consulting firm, what would you do if you didn't have those relationships? What would be 1, 2, 3 things that you feel this is where I'm going to place my bets? This is where I'm going to prioritize my energy towards?
First statement will be harsh. Sorry for being not encouraging. And the second will be more positive. First statement, get a job. And while you have a job, build these relationships. Go back into independent consulting once you have your own business plan. And that includes foremost, before anything else, what do I want to sell? And second, who are the top 10, 20, 50 people I feel confident that they will take a coffee with me to actually listen to me? Not whether they buy or not, that's a different thing. But before you jump into the cold water of being an independent consultant, you should have very clear in your mind, what can I do? Where's my strength? What do I want to offer? And who are my target 5, 10, 20 clients? Strong recommendation. And I'm old school. I know many people have jumped into the cold water and have been highly successful. Kudos. I went a very, very long road, and I don't say my road is the only one, but that's the, let's say, safer one. Now, imagining you are no age discrimination, but you're fresh out of college, however old you are, you've never worked, but you decide, I want to become an independent consultant and build my own business. Okay, what would I do? Number one, I need to get the experience, because without the experience, it's tough to sell because people will smell it. So how do I get the experience? If I have to work for free, then I work for free and I do only contracts that are based on success rate. So maybe I'm a good communicator and maybe I get in front of 1 or 2 people. I'm not going to ask for $1,000 or $2,000 a day. I'm going to say, pay me at the end based on the KPIs, which we move together, whatever that KPI is in your industry or business line. How do you get in front of people? Now that's the next question, right? By all means, use all the channels you have, whether that's Twitter, LinkedIn, social media. Why? Because now you cannot go whale hunt. It's tougher to go whale hunting. So you have to spread the net wide and you put some of your ideas out there and see what's the reaction. Polarize. Why not polarize right at the start? Because if you just say, well, in order to be a good leader, and then you copy from what everybody puts on LinkedIn, you're not making a difference. So why not polarize? And one or the other person will like that.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, especially when it comes to content and expressing your ideas. If you take that middle of the road where everybody else is, there's no differentiation, right? You really want to have an opinion, a clear point of view. It might push away some people. That's fine. Those people typically would not become clients anyways. But now people will know what you stand for and they're more likely to actually engage with you. So Ambi's worked on a lot of different projects, clients all around the world. When you look at the engagement process, the structure that you typically kind of take clients through, is there a standard starting point? Do you begin with, for example, a certain type of engagement or project with most clients at the beginning? Or walk us through like what that looks like. Is every project custom? Is there a bit of a program you take people through that's a bit more standardized? What does that look like inside your company?
That's a very good question. And the answer is no, it's not standardized. So it's individual, client by client. And the key thing is, how do we get a chance for a meeting, whether that's in person or in today's world via Zoom call, in order to introduce us? All that's needed are 15 minutes of the client's time. And the journey we take our client, or that's a little bit of my personal approach. The question is, how within 3 to maximum 5 minutes can I establish trust? If I cannot establish a base level of trust within the first 3 to 5 minutes, I failed my mission. I may as well shut off the computer, pack my stuff, and go home.
And what does that? So my question was actually a little bit more about when you've engaged a client or like the beginning paid engagement. But what you're talking about here is actually very interesting. So I want to go deeper on this for a moment. What have you found is most important to make sure that you do focus on in that initial kind of sales conversation to get the trust, to get the interest? What are a few things that people should be looking for?
The old name dropping in common history. So try to connect, number one. So whether that's people we know in common, that's companies we work together for, whether that's projects which gone wrong and you start jokingly talk about the whatever disaster and whatever planned, that certainly connects. My personal approach is not so much to talk about football and baseball and all the other sports, but it's certainly a valid way to establish that personal connection. That would be number one. Number two is to establish a credibility in terms of that the other side recognizes you as an industry expert and not somebody that doesn't know what he or she is talking about. And I guess it's easier if you come and say, I used to run supplier quality responsible for a whole country for an OEM. Then people usually tend to think that you know something about running supplier quality. that may or may not be really the case, but it certainly helps you in establishing the trust. Or if you had a career that prior was in a large tier one that's recognized for their logistics or quality system in the market, if you have that in your background, use it. If it is one or two very precise, very clear project examples where the other side sees, hey, this guy or this lady knows exactly how it's working, then bring them early in that conversation.
Right. And then now, let's say that we've had that meeting. I go, okay, Martin, this is great. I'd like to work with Ambi. Is there a typical starting point, like a discovery offer or some kind of initial step that you take with clients, or most clients tend to start with that? Or is it custom? Every client, every project can be different.
It's custom. That's the number one answer. And what I always say, you have certain tools in your toolbox. Okay, so one tool would be, I come for a day to your plant. I walk around. I'm not going to charge you in. Here's the thing about not charging anything. Okay, usually the answer is, look, if I just walk around for half a day in your plant and you're in Metro Detroit, of course, I'm not going to charge you anything. Okay. And this opens the conversation. Great. So yes, there's this freebie if it's within our area. Usually what we tell clients is we come in, if it's a bigger client, which we really want to target, we will come in for 2 or 3 days with a team and we will do an initial analysis. You don't have to pay for the consulting time, but I want you to cut me the travel expenses. And if it's only $200. Now, what I'm telling the client at that moment directly is, you know that I don't care about the $300 or $500 travel expenses. I can cover them. That's not the point. The point is, I want you to have a little bit of skin in the game, because that now that I know how painful it is for you to go establish me with a supplier number and a purchase order. And if the purchase order is only $200, you don't care about the $200 and I don't care about it. But I want you to go through the pain. Why? Because now you want a result. If everything is just for free and you're busy on that day, you maybe even tell me, you know what, thanks for coming, but you know what, just got a client emergency, please leave again. You don't want that, especially after you traveled halfway across the United States to give a 1-day free consulting or 3-day free. So
have you ever had to have that conversation with the client? Like if you're saying I pay $200, they have to go through getting you the purchase order, the supplier number. And so do clients ever say like, why? And then you have to explain it?
I explain it even before they ask why.
Okay.
I tell them the way how I told you, that's exactly how I explain it. I tell them up front, it's not about a $500 guy. It's about you having to go through the pain because I want you and your team committed. Because it doesn't matter for you whether it's $500 or $5,000. It's about you have to now probably go to your boss and ask for permission to onboard a new supplier and give me a PO. The amount almost doesn't matter. After you explain to your boss, now you need to deliver. And that means I need to deliver and we're in the same boat.
Yeah. Oh, you're sharing a lot of great stuff here today. Before we wrap up, I'll have final questions for you. The first is, when you look at your career to this point and you look at where you've had the biggest and greatest success, the most impact, is there a habit that you've cultivated over these years that you do on a regular daily basis that you feel contributes to the success and impact that you've had?
Stay in touch with people. You don't know whether they end up as your client, your boss, or your employee in the future. Stay in touch with people. Be nice to people. Things come around. Be positive. Don't take it personal. You reach out to 10 people, only 1 will buy, and that's fine. Maybe if you're doing well, 3 will buy. Don't expect more. And it doesn't matter as long as they keep you in their mind and maybe a year later they have a need.
Okay, then a quick follow-on question for you on that, just because I'm thinking about everybody who's with us right now. How are you managing that? Are you using a specific CRM, or what's the tool that you're using to help you to stay on top of who to reach out to and when?
We do have a CRM and I simply use Outlook and I put in reminders. There's this simple red flag icon. That's how I manage my agenda. So I send out an email. Hey, we're still here. These are the news in Ambi. And then I put in a reminder 1, 2, 3, 8 months from now. And then the next one comes out. And I use the same email chain. This way they see that there's frequent updates. There's different opinions on that within our organization. And we all have our own style.
Second question for you, and I'll have one more before we wrap up, is last 6 months, what's the best book that you've read, either fiction or nonfiction?
I always switch between fiction and nonfiction. The one I'm listening right now is really interesting, called Human Compatible by Stuart Russell. That's a good one. The one before, The Bomber Mafia by Malcolm Gladwell. I just love the author. Malcolm Gladwell, whatever book I read, I loved him. And then the last one, I know you asked one, you get 3. Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari. Yuval Noah Harari, one of the other authors I truly, truly love to listen and read.
Yeah, fantastic. So Martin, our final question, but no less important. For those that want to learn more about you, where's the best place for them to go?
ambeeng.com, ambeng.com. Have a quick look or just find me on LinkedIn. So if you want to catch me, just find me on LinkedIn, Martin Stadelmeyer, and let's talk and connect.
Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Your time today.
I appreciate your time. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.